Hello, thank you for joining with me. We are with Ken Wapnick, PhD, in his journey through the text of A Course in Miracles. And today we are on Chapter 5, Healing and Wholeness. I am picking up the reading in the introduction, and we are starting Chapter 5. And please, I'm going to ask you in advance, please forgive my pronunciation because I'm having problems. So, Beethoven's Gross Fuge, the Ego and the Holy Spirit. Just as Chapter 4 formally introduced the ego, Chapter 5 provides the formal introduction to the Holy Spirit, the first time in A Course in Miracles that he is discussed at any length. Before actually starting on the role of the Holy Spirit and what it means to have him as a presence in our minds, I would like to return to Beethoven and his Gross Fuge, which I spoke about briefly in the prelude. When I began working with the Course and delved into the battleground in our minds between ego and the Holy Spirit, I thought of Beethoven's Gross Fuge. Beethoven's music is usually divided into 3 stages: early, middle, and late. His most famous music belongs to the middle period, which includes the 3rd, 5th, and 7th symphonies. The 9th is on the cusp between the middle and late, which is dominated by the final piano sonatas and string quartets. The latter I believe to be the summit of all music. The reader may recall that the Gross Fuge belonging to the master's final period, was what Beethoven originally wrote for the final movement of the 13th quartet. Gross Fuge means great fugue, a fugue being, very briefly stated, 2 or more themes that are played and developed simultaneously. And herein one finds a powerful depiction of the ego, specifically the laws of chaos. It is aggressive music, almost impossible to play, let alone listen to, and seems to go on indefinitely, even though the piece lasts not even 20 minutes. I remember once lying on my living room floor listening to those last quartets. As the Gross Fuge played, it was as if the room spun around me with books falling off the shelves. Truly a chaotic experience. Fortunately, a gentle theme, the opposite of the others, is introduced at the beginning, even as it is quickly set aside. I then understood the experience of grace that many people have described. The theme is soft and beautiful, and one can liken it to the Holy Spirit and his forgiveness, although that would certainly not have been Beethoven's term for it. After the introduction, the other fugal themes take over, and one is cast into a veritable hell. But this grace-filled theme suddenly reappears, and the chaos gradually comes to an end. For a while, the melody becomes part of the fugue, and it is as if the ego and the Holy Spirit go back and forth, until finally the ego's theme is transformed as the fugue ends on a glorious note of triumph. Interestingly, as I mentioned earlier, the very next music Beethoven composed was the opening movement, also a fugue to the 14th quartet, arguably the closest anyone has ever come to depicting the peace of God. When these quartets are taken as a whole, one can glean that heaven is not attained without first going through the chaos of the ego, and one cannot successfully navigate the ego's turbulent waters without the Holy Spirit's gentle guidance. As we go through A Course in Miracles, not just reading it but living it, we experience a battle in our minds between these 2 forces. Certainly the Holy Spirit does not participate in this seeming conflict, but from the ego's point of view, he is the enemy. Yet his love wins out, as in Beethoven's masterpiece, for the ego's murderous cacophony is tamed, as it were, when brought to the Holy Spirit's loving sounds. The theme of heaven's gentle melody is found in the forgotten song, which we will see later. It is also described in the Song of Prayer as the song the Father and Son sing to each other, a wonderful symbol for the peace of God and the unity of Father and Son, the Holy Spirit being the right mind's remembrance of that song. The crucial point, the reason for this discussion, is that the memory of the melody is in all of us, continually singing its sweetness, yet we drown it out with the raucous sounds of the ego, our lives with the concomitant hostility and terror. Nonetheless, the melody is there, for the atonement principle, the separation never really happened, is encapsulated for us by the Holy Spirit's presence in our minds. No matter how we seek to cover him, his love can never be totally forgotten. There remains at least a tiny wisp of melody that reminds us we can make another choice, even in the midst of the ego's chaotic world of guilt and hate. Perfect place to stop. I thank you so much for joining with me today, and we will pick up here tomorrow. Have a beautiful day. I love you.